Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Asher Marketing Podcast. This podcast is hosted by Asher Agency, a full-service partner to clients nationwide. Asher's services include media planning, creative, digital and social, website development, public relations, printing and fulfillment, and more. Anything you need to connect with your prospects and tell your story. To learn more, visit asheragency.com or contact us at hello@asheragency.com. My guest is Jake Pickett. Jake, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well, Anthony. Thanks.
Well, thank you for joining us and for being here. How are the kids doing?
Kids are great. Man, they're a trip. We got complete polar opposite kids, but they're really, really good kids and a lot of fun.
So remind me, how old are your kids?
5th grader and a 2nd grader.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And you have the one who is the angel, does everything you ask her to do, and then the one who doesn't quite do that?
A couple of angels. One's just a little more maybe rebellious, I suppose. But, I mean, they're really, really good kids. And it's tough to keep it in context because I know how I was as a little kid.
Yeah.
And I think back to 6th grade, and Mrs. Knox had to give me a talking to like 3 different times. I had to miss the school carnival. And I think back now, and she was asking me point blank, why are you acting this way? And I could not answer it. So now I'm asking my 8-year-old, why are you asking this way? And then the sixth grader in me is like, he doesn't know, dude. You still don't know why you acted that way when you were 12.
Yeah.
So it's a trip. It's a lot of fun though.
Well, and it's a reminder that karma finds you, right? If you have, my son is now 23 and he was almost never in trouble. Mm-hmm. Like one time in high school, had his phone out and got kind of in trouble, but if I believe his side of the story, it was a misunderstanding. Yeah. And for years and years and years, I was like, oh, karma skips a generation because I was the worst kid ever. And now I have an 8-year-old stepdaughter who is like I was as a child. So karma will always find you, as we have both found out.
It does. And my wife, and bless her heart, she was Hannah when she was a kid, no trouble or anything. And so I'm like, hey, you know how it was when we met.
Yeah.
I made you laugh. That's probably the first problem.
Well, hopefully your child
kept encouraging me.
Making people laugh and you have that going for you.
Yeah.
All right. So you have a new job.
I do, yeah. So I started at Fort Wayne Metals back in November, mid-November.
Okay.
Heading up the marketing communications team there.
Awesome.
So, it's been a lot of fun.
Well, we're going to dive into that in more depth, but I'd like to hear how you got there because you have done a lot of different things over the years.
I have.
And take us through your career path. And if you don't mind, start at the beginning. What was your original plan? Where did you go from there? And did you continue down that path or did you go in a different direction?
Yeah. So I grew up in a family of educators, a lot of teachers in my family, including my cousin is the principal where our kids go to school. And I've got, my dad was a teacher for 30 plus years and retired as a teacher and many more family members. So that always felt like something I would do, coach and teach. I was the coach's kid. Yep. My dad always coached teams I was on and my brother's teams. And so really felt like I was going to get into that realm. It wasn't until I was a freshman at Vincennes University. I went to a junior college for a year to play baseball. And the idea was to play a couple years of JUCO, and then you could transfer to kind of a bigger school and get some playing time versus going to a big school and sit in the bench. Yeah. I also found out they have academic scholarships at junior colleges at that time because I was like, wait, I got A's. Why do I have to go to a JUCO? Yeah. Got a little extra money there. So as I was scrolling through, I was ready to transfer to Ball State, though, and scrolling through the majors, and I just didn't quite feel like I wanted to be a teacher. I just didn't think that was what I wanted to do. And I came across a major called sport administration, and that was the thumb stop right there. I was like, okay, sports, business seems kind of cool. I was never really into DECA, so now looking back, there's some things I wish I'd have done in high school to maybe be more prepared to make that decision. Yeah. So saw that, I could work in professional sports or college sports and in the business side of things or do a lot of ways with that. So selected that, transferred to Ball State, and took some marketing classes involved with the business minor. So we really kind of learned a little bit about marketing, but didn't really necessarily think I would get into marketing quite yet. Landed a couple of internships. And I tell people all the time, if you're kind of getting into the business, if you have any interest in sports business, but just in marketing business in general, a minor league baseball internship is a phenomenal way to, figure out who you are and what you want to do, but also decide if you want to work in, professional sports and at what level. Worked with some really great people, some mutual friends, Brian Shacko with the Tin Caps. He was the GM. He was the youngest GM in the Midwest League when I did an internship under him. He was the boss there. there. And then internship for the Indianapolis Indians. And both times just did a lot of work, got a lot of exposure. But really what stood out is I realized I didn't want to work in minor league baseball. I'm a baseball guy. I love baseball. And it came down to kind of the hours and what I wanted to do.
Well, it's your whole summer, right?
Exactly.
You're working when everyone else is playing.
Yeah. So I found I don't love it as much as the guys that choose to, and guys and girls that choose to make that their career. And I'm so happy that people find that, because I'm glad that the sport exists, but I didn't want to be the one running it.
Yeah. And remind me, where was that? What team were you working for?
The Beloit Snappers are up in Wisconsin, and that's where Shaq was.
Yeah.
And then I came down for the Indianapolis Indians because I was living in Indy.
Yeah.
And that internship I was the merchandise intern, so I was running the gift shop. It was my first chance to hire and manage a staff.
Yeah.
And you've got I don't know what I was, 21-year-old. Who are you going to hire? Well, your other 21-year-old friends.
Yeah.
Well, what are they going to do? Take advantage of you as their boss. So I learned some lessons there about hiring friends and working with friends. But was introduced to a vendor there who told me about an agency there in Indianapolis that had been growing like crazy, and they were a motorsports marketing agency. So reached out to them and got an interview. And this was an interesting crossroads, I think, where I had to make a decision. And the person who hired me, still to this day, is a great contact. He's now running the commercial division for Toyota Racing.
Okay.
He's phenomenal, motorsports guy, marketing guy. And so I sat down with him, and I thought, okay, I've already got a job offer on the table elsewhere. And so if he offers me a job, I got some time I can negotiate a little bit maybe. So he said, hey, Jake, we're ready to make you an offer. Here's what you'll make your first year. Is it something you want to do? And I said, well, John, here's the thing. I also have an offer to manage a store at the mall, a Hat World store at the mall. And, I'm kind of trying to decide. And that one's going to pay me a little bit more. And I kind of want some time to make a decision. And he kind of looked at me. He's like, were you paying attention to how I described this job? Would you like to travel the country and market motorsports?
Did he really say it that way?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Or do you want to go sit in the mall and run a hat and have to manage teenagers at a Hat World? And I was like, yeah, there goes that leverage. I'm in. Count me in. So
now, you had grown up playing baseball, but was motorsports in the picture at all, or was that brand new to you?
It was brand new, and that's why I didn't really think I would even get the offer. I said, John, I don't even have a motorsports background, and that was actually an advantage because the access we had. So we had clients. The first 4 clients I managed were DirecTV, ESPN, Crown Royal, and Subway. Those are like the 4 clients I was exposed to in the agency world. And as the lead contact for those folks, which is, you don't usually typically put a 23, 24-year-old in charge of an account like that. But they said, hey, if you had a motorsports background and you were a super fan, we wouldn't be able to trust you with the access you're going to have.
Yeah, you'd be starry-eyed.
Yeah, exactly.
Focused on the wrong things. Yeah.
So we had what's called a hard card in NASCAR terms in motorsports, so we could go anywhere in the track, give people tours of the tracks, work out signage and promotions for around the races. It was just a lot of fun, and learned everything about experiential marketing, sponsorship marketing, guerrilla grassroots stuff, and just learned a ton about that side of the marketing realm. Yeah.
So where do you go from there? Why'd you make a change, and where do you go from there? It sounds like a pretty great job.
It was fantastic.
When you're young, so why make a change?
Let's see. I was on the road 20 to 30 weekends a year.
Well, there's your
from
answer.
age 23 to 30. And I met who's now named Samantha Pickett, my wife. And so when we started dating, I thought, I don't really want to be gone as much as I was. And then we started a family. I said, I really don't want to be gone as much as I was. So when we got pregnant, we decided, hey, we're going to go back to Fort Wayne. Both of us being from here, we'll find something to do in Fort Wayne. She's a nurse, and so had a lot of opportunities that she could go after. For me, I had to make a tough decision on, okay, this is a little bit of a shift because there's not really anything like at that level of a motorsports or just agency in general in Fort Wayne. Definitely some national level agencies, but not the type of work I was doing. And so a mutual friend, Katie O'Merigan, been friends with her since we were in elementary school together. And so I don't know how, maybe LinkedIn or something, reached out to her, saw she was at BNY at the time, and said, hey, Katie, I'm looking to move back to Fort Wayne, have some agency experience, met with Jerry Youngblut and had a great conversation, interview with him. And he said, hey, I need you up here at the start of the year. And that was like beginning of December. So in a month, we were moving home.
Oh, wow.
And my wife could, she had a little more time. She stayed down in India and worked a little bit. So worked with Jerry and that group for a year and a half there at BNY with, Parkview and the boats companies, a lot of different, clients there, and learned a lot. learned more about what I didn't know than what I did.
Yeah.
It was really my first kind of taste of failure as a professional. And I love learning from those things and looking at the time. It didn't really even feel like a failure. It was more like this isn't the right fit. And I think I'm moving on. But as you get older and you kind of look back, you're like, okay, there were some things I could have done better.
I think everybody has one of those, at least one of those. I know I do. Yeah.
So great people, great clients, but connected with an agency called Market Share Plus, and that was a little more aligned with my experience. And really what happened at BNY was I had never placed a billboard order before. I had never, I didn't understand marketing media plans. I was the consultant for the big agency in New York who was doing all that work.
Somebody else was handling it.
Yeah, exactly. So if they needed help with it, if Crown Royal wanted help with a billboard, they just wanted to make sure it didn't sound like dumb, like they didn't know anything about racing. So their New York agency would write the billboard, and then we would make fun of their $1 million copywriters and be like, hey, you can tell you've never been to a race before. Here's what it should say. Yeah. So we felt pretty good about that. So coming to BNY, just a lot of unknowns. Didn't know what I didn't know yet. Market Share, one of our biggest clients was the Trans Am Racing Series. So, I got to get back into racing. And so I headed up the marketing and sponsorship development for the Trans Am Racing Series, which is a professional racing series. It's been around a long time, and actually was more popular than NASCAR prior to the NASCAR's rise in the 70s. But it was really the number one sort of stock car racing in America. And so caught on with them, got some great clients, and still doing some freelance work with one of those clients, and been able to kind of maintain those relationships. So.
Well, that's great. So you're at Market Share for how long?
Another year and a half. So about 3 years of those agencies. All right. And Sweetwater runs an ad in the Business Weekly looking for a marketing manager for the Sweet family of companies. And, some things that Market Share weren't maybe where I wanted them to be as far as, how the business was going. And so I wasn't necessarily really itching to leave. But when I saw that opportunity and knew some people over there already and the reputation there, I said, man, I really got to check this one out.
So Sweetwater is a known name to many people who will listen to this, but the Sweet family of businesses are, am I correct, that it's everything but the music part of the business? It's Lounge Optical and Sweet Cars, Sweet Aviation. Okay. Yeah. So was that attractive to you that it wasn't the music side, or was it kind of like, well, maybe if I do this, I can move over to the music side? How did you go into that?
I didn't really have any aspirations to get on the music side. I like music. I always enjoyed music, but I feel like I would have been imposter syndrome left and right with the talent in that building, just the musical talent that knows how to market. Yeah. And then you have some marketers that might dabble in an instrument too. But that was what I was excited about and really tried to leverage and sort of take advantage of when I was there were the resources that were running that $1 billion business. How do we take some of that stuff and inject that into Sweet Cars, Sweet Aviation? And so learned a ton about just borrowing resources and combining resources and using what's available to you without taking advantage or hurting what they need to be doing. So I had to be diplomatic about it and sort of gracious for time. But any chance, and there's people that are probably still annoyed by me, because any chance I got to kind of tap into their knowledge, I tried. And it just incorporate. And that was intentional too, in that we wanted the marketing to be cohesive. It's now all under kind of the Surak Enterprises umbrella. And I can't think of many more people I would rather spend 6 years of my life working for than Chuck Surak, and just a phenomenal place to be. And so now that they're kind of doing their own thing and standing on their own legs, it's interesting to see how they're just really taking off. And so Sweetwater.
Well, and kind of drawing on your agency background, because you're working for different entities. You have multiple clients. You got to balance your priorities. And
that was the selling point for me, to sell myself for the position. Interestingly, I was actually passed over the first time through, but then got a call 6 weeks later, hey, you still interested? And so there had been a lot of turnover in that position. And so I feel pretty good about having come in there after 5 different people in 3 years were turned over in that position. And I held on to it for 6 years and left on really good terms, and just left for an opportunity to kind of move into more of a growth and management role. Yeah.
So another case where good experience, but you still decide to do something different. Yeah. So was it the opportunity to, I think you said, be in a management role that motivated that? Any other motivators in making the change?
Well, one was really maybe taking a chance at focusing on one industry. So I went from Sweetwater to Ruoff Mortgage for about a year, a little over a year, and now at Fort Wayne Metals. And in both cases, I had been stretched really thin in the agency side and even thinner on the Sweetwater side. And we figured out pretty quickly why that turnover, part of the reason that turnover was there was like 12 companies that I was in charge of marketing. And just having, like, how intimidating it is to open up your Facebook and try to choose which account to reply to, and you have 12 different Facebook accounts right there. And
every day, all of those 12 entities have a priority for you. So you always have 12 top priorities, and you get it. That I speak with a little bit of knowledge because that's the agency world, right?
Exactly.
So I can see why it might be tempting to go with more depth than breadth.
Didn't feel like we can get very deep. So the first thing, one of the best things we did was bring a counterpart in who was a music person who could handle, the academy and the studios and the store itself is its own marketing entity compared to the online business and the phone business. So Aaron came in, he's still there, just absolutely rocking it. He's one of my favorite musicians in town. I'm gonna plug his band, Humans Among Us. He's got a brand new band making fantastic music. I want to give Aaron a shout out because he's just an awesome dude. But new band, Humans Among Us. His wife is singing, sounds amazing. They play some really cool stuff. So I'm excited to catch them live. But so Aaron's still a good friend. He's marketing the studio and all those things. So it was just a chance to kind of, how can I do, like, how deep can I get and how smart can I be about one industry and apply what I know? So that was part of it for sure.
Okay. All right. So you mentioned that you're now at Fort Wayne Metals. Tell us a little bit about what Fort Wayne Metals is. We've had some Fort Wayne Metals folks on the podcast previously, but from your perspective as someone who still has probably a good deal of objectivity, but also some knowledge, what is the business all about and what's your role in that?
Yeah, I think the most common misconception is what Fort Wayne Metals makes. I think we get lumped into everything from people think we make like paper clips and needles to giant like metal poles or metal recycling. I've heard all of that. And I actually had that misconception too. I was looking up, I'm like, how am I going to get started? Thinking back on the products I've marketed and the companies I've worked for, no reputation was better. Like coming to me, I was prepared that, hey, Fort Wayne Metals has a phenomenal reputation of people and how they treat their people. So that was really, really appealing. But how am I getting excited about the product? So I did some research, watched some videos, just talked to some people and said, I'm absolutely going to go in and find out more. I got to learn more about this. And found out real quickly that we make some really cool stuff. And it's all very important stuff too. So really it kind of boils down to precision wire that's used primarily in medical devices, implants, things like that. But we also have some non-medical usage as well. And so we're taking, wire that might be the size of maybe a nickel or a quarter. It's more like a pole at that point or a rod. And I learned the process all about drawing wire. How do we take that rod and get it down to, a fraction of the diameter of a hair? And that's when my mind got blown. We're taking a wire that's smaller than a human hair, putting it inside 19 wires inside that, and then another one inside that, and just really cool science and research and development going on over there to help the world. So that's been really cool.
So tell me about your role and the team you work with.
So heading up the marketing communications team, and it was a little bit of a shift on how the team's been structured there. But primarily managing a team of creatives. And so, which is interesting for me, not having a creative design background. I've done quite a bit of writing, but I've worked with creatives and helped art direct. I'll use that with loosely. Helped art direct for many years based on what the client needed, based on what I know the boss of the boss of the boss needed, or based on what was best for the actual company or the product. And you kind of have to really do all three of those sometimes.
Well, it goes back to the experience of somebody in New York designed a billboard for a racetrack. I can give them input into how to make it better.
Exactly. So I felt pretty comfortable going into that, but really appealing to me, drawing back on kind of growing up in a teaching and coaching background, I still have always had that sort of itch of wanting to kind of lead and help. I think I can help people and make an impact on people. So we've got a team of a couple of graphic designers. We've got a copywriter, we've got a project manager, and we've got a multimedia creative, and then we're in the process of hiring a content specialist to kind of round out that team.
All right. And there's a lot of folks who are hiring content specialists these days. Tell me what that means to you and what you're looking for. Maybe we'll find an employee for you through the podcast.
Well, it's funny what we were talking about before, how that made an interesting discovery as we were interviewing candidates based on the job description that was written about the role of the person who left. And in kind of your gut or your instinct is to say, someone left, there's a hole, let's fill it with that person. We just need to find another that person.
Need to find a clone of the person who left.
Yeah. And so we kind of started realizing I'm not a clone of the person I replaced. And our needs aren't exactly the same from a business needs standpoint to a talent need within the team. We have a copywriter who has been there for 6 plus years, who primarily has been more of a storytelling, creative copywriter, but really starting to I feel like I'm helping him see that he has a lot more underneath their knowledge, underneath the hood than he realizes. And he's doing a phenomenal job writing from a technical standpoint. So we interviewed a few people thinking we were looking for a technical copywriter. But the more we thought about it, we thought, Dan can kind of move into this role and really move into some more leadership opportunities for him as a veteran of the team. And let's fill this with somebody that he can teach, not try to go find someone who's going to be an exact fit for that's a needle in a haystack right there. Someone who can write about Wire, who can write about the things that we need to write about in that world. So just kind of a readjustment of what we thought we needed. And so what we're looking for is someone that can do kind of a combination, understand complicated things, and then sort of write it in an understandable, digestible way. That's probably A1. The second thing this person will do is help manage our trade show marketing, everything from the marketing materials and the booth setup to the logistics of that. We have just a phenomenal group of sales reps who travel the world. I had no idea about this part of Fort Wayne Middle, is that how we have so much representation across the globe, including people based here in Fort Wayne who one day might be in 1 week might be in Malaysia, and the next week they're in Turkey, and the next week they're here for a week. And so we're doing trade shows and evaluating trade shows around the world constantly. And so that's been a little bit of a shift. I think, when I understand, we had less than 10 trade shows, and now we're doing closer to 20. And so just really trying to be strategic about what shows we do, who goes to those.
Well, it's a big investment, so you want to make sure you get a good return on that.
So really investing in that. So we need someone that can really kind of help, dial that in and be a lead there. And then some account coordinators, support, looking for some help in that area. We've got a really strong... She's referred to as a project manager, but really a traffic person with my agency background. That's really what I would relate her to, is she's not necessarily picking a project, seeing it all the way through to the end and the finish line. She's seeing all our projects in and helping kind of direct the traffic of how they go through our system. And so she could use some support there. So really just looking to kind of round out the team with some support and talent.
So you're spending a lot of time learning the business right now. You spend a lot of time building and sort of learning a team. Does that leave time for anything else?
Not a lot there. Those are really the two big things. And the thing I've been sort of hitting my team over the head with is we have three main focuses that we can help as a marketing team. We can market our product, we can market our people, and we can market the processes. And by processes, I mean the machines with which we do the work. Those are really the three things that help us go. Sometimes we have enough demand for a product and we have enough supply, but we don't have the people or the machines to do it. There may be times where there's not enough supply available, but we got the people and the machines. So as a marketing team and a corporate communications team, what can we control? Well, the only part we can control of that, we can't control the supply chain, and we can't control if the machines are working, if we have enough, but we can help get people in the door to run them when we need them. So that's been a huge focus for us, is how do we support the employer branding, the local advertising, the digital advertising, things that we're doing to try to recruit. How can we, plus up our ads, plus up our copy, going through some exercises right now with legal on what we can and can't say. And so they're not real happy with me probably right now, but not that we're trying to, do anything wrong. We just want to find the best way to say the words that we know are true. But we got it. There's a little more scrutiny there because it's a medical. We're in the medical world. I kind of had an aha moment of, why am I like this? Well, at Sweetwater, we could not get a sentence out the door without at least 3 superlatives or adjectives in that sentence. No ad did not have less than 3 adjectives in it. Well, every time I add an adjective to a line for Fort Wayne medals, that's a risk, right? We're making a claim.
You're making a promise,
right? So, really starting to shift that mindset. That's been a learning moment for me, and probably growing pains that other people don't want to experience, but I needed to.
Well, and that limitation, I guess I can use that word, is another creative exercise, right?
Yeah.
How do I still get the point across while still being responsible to the industry?
Yeah.
So there's something else I want to ask you about, because I know it's important to you, and it's not your day job, but you have a pretty important volunteer commitment that you're involved in. It sounds like you had some recent success with it. Talk about, if you don't mind, what the organization is, why you got involved, and how that fits in with the rest of your professional life as a marketer.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you asking. And so I've been involved with Special Olympics since 2007. So over 15 years. Started out coaching basketball. So I lived in Marion County at the time. They needed a basketball coach for 3rd, 4th, 5th graders. Yep. And so showed up at Sunnyside Elementary and met these kids and started coaching. It was my first time coaching anything really, other than, I can't think of an example before that of coaching. Maybe intramural teams that I was on, I was maybe the coach of. But so really kind of just get to know the kids and trying to understand, what to do and how this is going to go. Only took one practice before I was hooked, and I'm like, man,
now, did you have any
back.
prior connection to Special Olympics?
I did. So if you back up to when I was in elementary school, middle school, my parents worked. My mom worked in a group home and worked with people with special needs, and prior to that, she worked at the State Developmental Center.
Okay.
So that was the big facility where the NIC is now, and I think Ivy Tech has some space there. So right there, it was called the State School, or this. There was other words that we don't use anymore to describe the people that lived there. And so it was nothing for me to, and it was right next to my neighborhood. So I was at my mom's work a lot. And then when she started working in group homes, maybe instead of going to a babysitter or a practice after work, I would have to go back to the group home and hang out with her. So I would find myself teaching, someone who's 30 years old that can, barely speak English or might have some troubles comprehending English and communicating with me as a 10-year-old. So we would just play catch, or we would shoot baskets, or I just became very comfortable in that world.
So going back to that coaching and teaching kind of legacy in your family, there's an outlet for it.
Yeah, and I'll never forget in 5th grade. So we had general music class. So you had to choose, like, did you do choir or band? And I was so into sports, I had no interest in singing or playing an instrument. So I chose the general music one. And we had these keyboards, and there was like a machine that had a bunch of keyboards around it. So all us kids could sit around the same machine and learn a song. And I'll never forget Eric sat next to me, who I don't know like what you would diagnose or anything, but I just know he had trouble sitting still, and he was in the special ed class, and I didn't know much about it beyond that. He didn't have any friends, got picked on a lot, and he's sitting here just struggling to try to figure out how to play it. And I had Mary had a Little Lamb down. I was pretty, man, I can play piano now. Yeah. And so he couldn't do anything, and so I kind of, hey, can I help Eric with his? And I'll never forget the feeling of when he played it on his own for the first time. And not just my feeling, but the feeling on his face, the accomplishment, like the joy. Yeah. And then I got to see that over and over when I moved into Special Olympics. And I think that triggered something. That first practice, when maybe somebody hit a free throw, it took me back to the look on Eric's face when he learned how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb. Yeah,
well, that's so that's a great beginning. And you talked about how you got started with it. How is that still part of your work today? What are you doing today? And tell us about the event that you were just part of.
Yeah, so I've been coaching it. So I coached it for about 5-6 years, basically until I moved back to Fort Wayne. And then I did coach for Allen County track, Special Olympics Allen County track, until I started having kids. And then I decided to shift that focus over. But coached basketball, and then basketball season ended. Track coach. We need a track coach. All right, I'm in. Yeah. Track season ended. Hey, we need a softball coach. All right, I'm in. And just kind of continue to grow with that organization. I even got to coach the Team Indiana track team for the 2010 National Special Olympics Games, which is really cool. Now, not a guy that really should necessarily be teaching track and field, but it was more of just kind of coordination and keeping everybody together. So anyway, fast forward to, I'm not coaching anymore now that I'm in Fort Wayne. I want to stay involved. And so I get a call from the state office, contact there. Hey, we need someone to chair the Polar Plunge. It's our biggest fundraiser of the year. There's 18 of them around the state. We need a chair for the Fort Wayne Plunge. And the person who had been chairing it prior to me taking over did a fantastic job, was raising, I'm not sure, $30,000, $40,000 a year, really good sponsors, really good involvement, 100 plus people coming out and plunging. And So when she stepped away, there was a year where we didn't have a plunge. So came in and said, okay, I'm going to just try to build this thing up.
Yep.
And just, started recruiting family to help me do the thing, plan it and run it. And so the first choice we made was to move it from downtown up to Matea County Park. Allen County Park's just been a phenomenal partner for us, and really like them. And Jeff there, the superintendent, is always like, hey, always make sure you say Matea County Park. The city's got plenty of parks. This is Matea County Park. And so he's always fighting for his
I'm sure he'll appreciate that plug.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a great park. And then, of course, Fox Island as well.
Yep.
And so I love working with those guys, and we were able to move the plunge up there. They've got a great body of water and a nature center there, so all the facilities that we needed. And so that first year, and again, this would have been year 9 that I've chaired it, we raised not quite $10,000, but we can raise some money and just continued to increase it. We had 30-40 people come out and plunge, and then we got to a couple years later we got to 100, and we were raising like 20,000-30,000, and just have seen continued growth. And there's a lot of people to thank for that. The schools have really gotten involved. The high schools have really gotten involved and carried that. We've had some really phenomenal sponsors kind of step up and help kind of provide some of those lump sum donations. And then the local media has been really, really helpful. So Wayne 15's been a partner with on it since I took it over, and then Adams Radio Group. They'll all blast it out on their channels and stations. They give us a chance to come in, do live interviews, and just really promote the thing. So really, really good partners. So the Polar Plunge itself, though, is exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It takes place in February.
Okay.
And so we start planning it now.
Yeah.
We'll open registration.
A lot of people do theirs on January 1st.
Yeah.
I think February has the potential to be way worse in terms of
Potentially
snow and temperature.
Yeah, we've had some bad ones. We've had some good ones.
Yeah.
And to me, a good one is it's snowing and it's like 25, so everything's white and frozen. Yeah. But it's not like torturous to be standing out there with a microphone and a bullhorn.
It looks like winter, but it feels maybe a little bit. Feels a little better than it could. Yeah.
I've been down there in a t-shirt or a polo shirt, because I typically will be the ones kind of introducing each team as they go in.
Yeah.
And so I've been down there in short sleeves. I've been down there like in 10 degrees.
Jeez.
So I actually was involved in the plunge in Indy just as a volunteer, kind of running the VIP tent because I had some experience managing sponsors. Yep. And so, but never had really run it before, and really just kind of wanted to get people out there. You sign up, you raise money, and then you show up. And we don't really know what to expect between when we get people signed up and then when they show up. So we may show that we've raised, X number online, and then the end of the day, we see the full number that everybody raised, and we're just so thankful that everybody works so hard to raise that money for us. So, and it all goes to Special Olympics Indiana, which is, the reason we're there is to support the athletes. This money pays for, so Special Olympics athletes don't have to pay to participate.
Yeah,
and that's why
great.
we do it. Let's raise money so they can play.
Well, and good for you for staying involved for so long. I know a lot of times as a volunteer, you kind of run out of steam and run out of time, but it sounds like you're pretty committed to it, so that's great.
It's been fantastic. And so now's year 9. So this year, we had more than 300 plungers. I think we had 340 plungers, raised $84,000, which is both just highs for us. So now we're like, okay, how can we go bigger? How can we go bigger?
Yeah.
So now we got our eyes set on just enhancing the thing and just making it more fun for the people. It's not just about raising the money. That's the most important part, but we want people to come back. That's how the event grows.
Yeah.
If everybody comes out, plunges, and are like, this is a terrible event and I don't want to come back, then we didn't do our job. I don't care how much money we raised if no one comes back.
And if they have a good time, they'll bring friends.
Exactly. And that's what we're seeing. Teams are growing. Design Collaborative in town is our biggest corporate team, and they came out 3-4 years ago with like 1 or 2 people, maybe 4 at the most.
Yeah.
They had like a dozen, including I think a 3rd highest fundraiser in the state. He was definitely a top 5, someone that works there.
Yeah.
The numbers change after our event ends. We have a Carroll teacher, Alan Bodenstein, who was the state's number 2 fundraiser. Wow. Carroll High School shows up and leads the state in fundraising.
Oh, that's great.
East Allen University had almost 100 kids there plunging. Wow. That's the 1/3 of their school.
Wow.
So the support we get from the local schools, the local businesses, other nonprofits show up that maybe have a shared interest in helping this group. So it's just been a really, really cool event.
Well, that's awesome, and congratulations on the recent success. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to pivot to some quick hit questions.
Okay.
First one has to do with career success and fulfillment. You've had the opportunity to do a lot of different things. You've worked in industries with a lot of depth. You've worked more broadly and served a lot of different clients. You've managed people. You've been on the end of being managed. What's the one piece of advice that you've learned that you want to share about building a fulfilling career?
Oh man, that's one. This is probably the one I thought about the most. Coming in here, because there's so many ways you can go. The thing that I think I feel most strongly about is networking and growing your circle and getting out of your comfort zone. And those are really three of the same thing, right? I moved back to Fort Wayne in 2010 and had my best friends growing up. A couple of them still lived here, and we're still all very tight. We're brothers. We're not just friends. We're brothers. We're on each other's weddings. But we're not all similar when it comes to professions or even just professional style or anything like that. A couple of them have no interest in networking professionally or like caring what I do for a living. They're ready to go golf, have a couple of drinks, and then we go on with our lives. And we know each other's kids, but we don't care about each other's careers. So it was important to me to find kind of a circle that I could grow within and kind of grow and network in. And so I did that through YL&I was my taste of that here in Fort Wayne. So got involved with that organization, and I was never a big on just walking up to random people and striking up a conversation. Nowadays it's not even a thing or like a delay for me. I probably do it too much more than anything. I'm like the dad in that there's a Home Depot or somebody commercial where like you're becoming your parents. No, you don't have to. Like, that's me. I do all those things that the guy's like, you're not supposed to do that. So just understanding like how you can grow your network and that you got to get uncomfortable to grow. That's I love the snake sheds its skin because he's growing sort of metaphor there. Yeah,
well, and it's something that I think it's really easy to avoid is to just stay in your comfort zone, stay around people who do what you do and think like you think. But it's really important to test that every now and then, and really great things happen. If you only spend time with people who have the same network as you, there's only so much opportunity. So,
and it's definitely not for everybody, and not everybody wants to have a diverse career and do different things. But I still think there's value even in growing within the position. Even if you want to do the same job for 40 years, which is fantastic, I still think it's important to get other perspectives and be open-minded and understand that just because I did this job for 20 years this exact way doesn't mean on year 21 there might not be a better way, just like there could have been when you started. Yeah, and even more broadly, just because this is what I think and the people in my circle think that way, it's nice to get a different perspective every now and then. Get outside the echo chamber. Yeah, you might learn something. Yeah. All right, next question has to do with the work you do, the organizations you work with, and you can include in that the volunteer work you do. What is a myth or misconception about the work you do, the organizations you work with that you'd like to clear up, or something that maybe isn't appreciated enough that you'd like to amplify? That's a tough one. I try to look back. There's so many misconceptions with Special Olympics. That's an easy one, I think, for me to look at and try to shatter some misconceptions there. I think the biggest one is on more the surface level of it's not just a one-time or every 4 years Olympics event like track and field meet. It's a year-round movement where there are social aspects to it. There's leadership development. They have a leadership class. And the CEO of Special Olympics Indiana has said that he thinks that the only way he could be considered a success as the CEO is if the person who replaces him is a Special Olympics athlete. Oh, wow. His goal is That's a really big commitment. Find his replacement to be a Special Olympics athlete. Wow. And we have... and I've met several Special Olympics athletes who could do that job. Wow. It's really smart. And so that's the misconception is that it's like a charity. It is a charity. It's a nonprofit, but it's not a charity because we feel sorry. It's not a charity because it's cute. It's there because we need to have opportunities for everybody. And so when we talk about inclusion, that's where my mind goes. It doesn't necessarily, it can go any number of directions, but in my heart, inclusion is making sure everybody's got the opportunities, whether they know how to present themselves the right way, or it doesn't matter how they represent themselves or what their abilities are. There's something inside everybody. So that's always my kind of go-to, I think, when it comes to Special Olympics. That's a really good perspective, and I think that does clear up some misconceptions. All right, last one. We marketers love our tools. We like our hacks. We like our tricks that we use. Is there any one of those, it could just be a general tip, something that you use in your work, maybe not every day, but that you rely on, that you think people should know about? And this could be something that maybe they already do know about and you just think it's worth mentioning, or something that maybe is less well known. Yeah, I think there's so many digital tools out there. The thing that I really have struggled to, that I wish I had had more kind of experience, was vetting those tools and the usefulness of those tools, and clearing the sizzle from the steak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And seeing the full benefits. So not going into the conversation with a vendor with anything other than I want to learn what you do.
Yep.
And I tend to go in those with a rebuttal ready, because I just feel like I'm going to get sold, and I'm gullible, and I'm just going to think this is the greatest thing they've ever made. So going into those meetings, I think I can do a better job going into those meetings with set questions and my own agenda. They might ask for the meeting, but it should be my agenda if I want it to be. Or I could just say, you know what, I'm just going to shut up and hear everything. But just being prepared to tell them what you're looking for and understand what they need, because it's really easy. There's so many and shiny bells and whistles out there that can get us and make our jobs easier. That it's easy to kind of go for, the next shiny thing, marketing. And I've been at places along my career where the leadership said, we're going to chase the next shiny thing. And all of a sudden you got a handful of 20 shiny things, and you don't know what to do with them and what anything's worth. So trying not to get caught up in the glimmer of that stuff, and just, using tools you need, that's one that's, I think, recent for me. Yeah,
well, and what I hear in that too is preparing for the conversation, even if the preparation is, okay, I'm going to let them talk to me and not, dive in with too many questions if what I really want to do is hear what they have to say. I think especially when you're talking to vendors, there's a temptation to just kind of show up and let the meeting happen to you. But if you think about it beforehand, you could probably make better use of everybody's time.
I feel like I could definitely make better use of my time, and theirs for sure as well. But man, you got to protect your time now, especially.
Yeah, well, in the interest of protecting your time, I'm going to have us sign off. But I really appreciate you doing this. Thanks for being here, and thanks for all the work you do.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's always fun.
Thank you for listening to the Asher Marketing Podcast. The Asher Marketing Podcast is a production of Asher Agency, a full-service agency for franchises and co-ops, colleges and universities, financial service companies, healthcare organizations, and government agencies. We'll be back next time with another great guest, and we hope you'll join us then.